Welcome to the Chariot Automotive Group in Twin City and Lafayette. Our Monday night memory celebrating. Nate was texting me today, 49 years together. Some of you guys probably ran across Twin City Auto back in the day when you were in West Lafayette. But we appreciate their sponsorship. And Coach Keady, by the way, as we just started, I think Kathleen just jumped on. So we're going to start the conversation and let the coach come in as well. So if I don't mean to interrupt anybody, but if he comes on, I may jump to him as well for a quick comment. Glenn Robinson, I'm looking right at you, so I'll ask you first. When you first heard that the coach had made the Hall of Fame, the Naismith Hall of Fame, what came across your mind?
Well, I thought he should have been in there a long time ago, but I was very excited. That was great news. That actually made my day to just to be a part of something special like that, because he means everything to me, and he did a lot for me to make me the person who I am today.
Yeah, and I think that's got to be probably a pretty common refrain. I am going to go around the horn so we kind of introduce everybody. Obviously, Glenn Robinson needs no introduction, a National Player of the Year in 1994. You didn't know that you'd have another one this year in Zach Eady. That was a pretty cool thing to have that replaced. But Brian Cardinal, I'm not seeing your audio, so you might want to make sure you flick that on, because I'm hearing. There you go. Though you can keep it on. Brian, I'm going to come to you, because one of the relationships, Coach Keady had a strong relationship with a lot of guys, and each one of you is a very personal one. But certainly that relationship that the two of you put together, I think that like any good relationship, it had its high points. Didn't have that many low points, but you probably he didn't have much gray hair at that time, but you might have put a little on it. But Brian, what was your reaction at that time in terms of that, hearing that he had made the Hall of Fame, and what was your initial reaction?
Yeah, similar to Glenn, it was about time. Obviously, I'm thrilled, like everybody, every former player, every fan. We're all thrilled, excited, and grateful that he's going in, and it's obviously well deserved, and it's going to be a great experience for him, great experience for all of us following and just watching and being a part of it from a distance.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, and I think that your closeness and over the years, I think everybody on this call could almost talk about the father figure part of that. I would ask Bruce Weber on the colleague perspective. I mean, obviously he's got a lot of those same qualities for you, having worked together even when you were just getting into coaching. But now that you've had a week or so, or a couple weeks to kind of digest what this means from that Hall of Fame perspective, I mean, it's a credit to you and all the work that you did. Obviously, your 18 years at Purdue and years at Western Kentucky. But how did you put this into your thought process when he got into the Hall of Fame?
Obviously I was thrilled for him. I didn't know it was going to happen. I had lobbied Matt Painter, Elliott Bloom. I know you did, Al, and a lot of the players, and it didn't make sense to me. And they always talk about 800 wins. They always talk about going to the Final Four. And it was always my one regret. Glenn, if you wouldn't have wrestled with somebody, maybe we would have got to the Final Four.
That wasn't true.
Oh, that wasn't.
I don't know where that came from.
That is such an urban legend.
I heard that myself.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me feel good, because it was like 25 years later I find out that was why. So,
yeah.
But no, but it was the one thing that I was very fortunate, got to go to the Final Four, and Coach didn't get to go, and that was always one thing. That was the first thing I thought of when we won at Illinois and got to go, and that he didn't get to go, and I was so fortunate. But I'm just thrilled he got in it. It's all because of you guys, all the guys on the screen.
No doubt.
Just amazing. The group here, all the players through the years. Obviously, Coach has meant the world to me. He gave me a chance I learned so much about, not only basketball, but about life. And, it's really cool. And for me, it's the big scope of it. I was so happy because he did everything. He did high school basketball, Beloit, Kansas. He did Hutchinson Junior College. He did the assistant at Arkansas and did go to the Final Four with Eddie Sutton. Obviously, there's long tenure at Purdue, and then USA basketball. You don't know how many summers he volunteered and won gold medals, and assistant gold medal with the Olympics, and even messed with the NBA. So, for a little bit. So he did it all, and just really thrilled. And I hope, I know you guys are happy. That's why you're on here for him. And just, again, thank you guys for all that you did for Purdue basketball and for Coach.
Steven Scheffler, I'm going to go to you because you and Brian Cardinal, I think, are interesting. Just guys that grinded their way to greatness in different ways, and yet brought some of the best arguments or discussions I ever heard on a bus with Steven Scheffler talking politics, and probably Brian. I don't know if Brian was more talking philosophy. I wasn't on many buses at that point in time. But Steve, what you put this into perspective from your, obviously making yourself an All Big Ten and Big Ten Player of the Year, and all the work that went into that. Playing with Troy Todd and Everett in '87, '88, and having a chance to nearly win a Big Ten your senior year, but to talk about that and that relationship and with Coach Keady over the years.
Well, Coach, for as intense as he was very patient, because I was told later that I was the worst recruiting mistake in Purdue basketball history. And I remember when they suggested you could go out for spring football if you wanted to. So I was like,
yeah, I remember that.
I remember my freshman year, the best way to get on the court, because nobody wanted me, was like, I'm going to just set picks for Troy Lewis.
Yeah.
And then he'll at least take me as the fifth guy because he'll like to get open shots. And then Everett, if he's got a guard Troy, will take me so he doesn't have to fight through the pick. So, but that was the thing with Coach, is he could do the most with the least. I mean, there's some guys on this call that are very talented. I was not one of those. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to play for Coach, because it's like, he took Jim Rowinski, a walk-on, and turned him into All Big Ten. And I'm like, well, if he can do that, there's hope for anybody. And that's what, when I think about Coach, that's the crazy thing, is how he is able to take, just blah players and really mold a very good team together. And the other interesting thing was I talked to Gary Payton. Yeah. And I have this stereotype of Coach being this hard-nosed da-da-da-da guy. And Gary was like, oh, no, Coach was really cool in the NBA. And I was like, are we talking about the same Coach Keady? I couldn't believe it. So,
yeah, I think
he had multi-dimensions, but very good coach to play with. I'm really glad I had that opportunity.
Yeah, I know that feeling is mutual on his end. Everett Stephens and Troy Lewis, I can't put you guys together. And of course, Mitchell's not here, so you can say whatever you want to say about Todd. But no, the fact
we ain't got enough time, Alan.
What's that? But the fact that you were the first big, and Bruce can relate to this because he was involved with it at the grassroots, the first big recruiting coup. I know Steve Reid was as big, it was before the transfer portal, and Steve Reid was as big as it got. But after Steve Reid, it was Troy Todd and Everett. Talk about that. There's so many fun recruiting stories, and like Glenn was talking about, I don't know if any of them are really true. Like the one that supposedly Coach Keady locked you in the car, Everett, and said you're not going anywhere else but Purdue, and I don't know if that's true or not. And Troy, the fact that you were a basically McDonald's All-American at that time. But talk about just the first time you met him and what he was like, and then how that relationship has stayed the way it's been all these years. And I'll start. Everett, you go first.
For me, when Coach, came in and recruited me, Coach Weber was the one who came in and started the process. But Coach seemed like he was very, very focused and determined on having me join up with Todd and Troy. And he thought that we'd be a really good group, once we got in upper years. And I was still kind of like, wasn't sure of making that decision. And I just remember being on that ride with him and Coach Weber in the car as well. and he came at you so hard and so straightforward and blunt. And he wanted me to make that decision right then and there. And I wasn't ready to make that decision, but I was leaning towards it. And I just remember leaving the car and still having a question mark. And Coach Weber told me later on that Coach Keady said, do you think I was a little bit too hard on him? And he was like, yeah, because he wanted me to commit right then and there. I was going to go because my dad thought it was the best decision. And even up to this day, it ended up being one of the best decisions I made as far as with college.
Yeah, I still want to ask you about the happy-go-lucky dolphin comment, but I'll ask you that later. Troy, your comments, and then we can come back to Everett on that, because I always love that term. That was my favorite Gene Keady term, was Everette Stephens was a happy-go-lucky dolphin. Like, what the hell is that? But that was it. So, hey, Troy, go ahead.
Well, growing up in Indiana, obviously I watched a lot of Purdue basketball, so watched Steve play, and Joe Barry Curl was one of my favorite players growing up. So I got to see Coach Keady back in the early 80s, and I saw how intense he was. I thought he was crazy. But really, my story, I got to, Coach Weber was an integral part of recruiting me, and I actually took my visit to Kansas. I took a visit to Kansas, and I actually committed to Kansas. And so I get back from my trip, and my mom was like, "Oh, you acting different," because usually after my trips I'm tired. After recruiting trips, you're really tired. You really want to not do anything, and
too much partying.
Yeah. So I get in my bedroom, and next thing you know, my mom yells at me, said, "Hey, it's a telephone call." Coach Weber may not remember this, but it was Coach Weber. Coach Weber asked me, "Hey, how'd your trip go at Kansas?" I said, "Oh, I really like it." I didn't tell him I committed. I was like, "Oh, I really like it at Kansas." Kind of reminded me of the Wigwam and Fall Gallon. Was that old school type of environment. So I was like, "Oh, I really like it there." And so Coach Weber and I hung up, and then Coach Keady called. He said, "No one loves you more than we do. You got to be here. We want you here.
That's
right.
right.
Want to treat you better than us."
Yes.
Okay, Coach.
I didn't know he was a closer like that.
Yes.
Oh yeah, he was. He was straightforward, and after I got off the phone with him, I looked at my mom. I was like, my mom was actually on the other end of the phone. I was like, "Should I go there?" And she and my dad talked me kind of out of going to Kansas, and told me, "Hey, you should play for Coach Keady." And so it was like Everett, it was the best decision of my life. And like what Everett talked about, Coach Weber, I know he recruited so many people, so you might not remember these little stories, but when Todd and I committed, Coach Weber said, "We got to get Everett. We got to get Everett." So that was, that's what really started it for me.
And it's funny because that's the same thing he said to me as well. I remember him saying, "No one's going to treat you better than Purdue and our staff." And I mean, he was just so determined. "You're going to get a great education. You're close to home." I mean, he was just throwing everything at me, just forcefully, and I was like, man, this dude really wants me to come there.
And he did. That's the fact.
And I did.
Yeah.
My dad, he thought it was the best decision.
And it was at least for Purdue fans, certainly. Steve Reid.
Hey, Alan.
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, Kathleen's on her iPhone, but I think she needs some guidance on how to get like the camera on and the audio on. If you can help her. I'm
gonna ask her to unmute here, so I'll work on that. But I want to ask you, Greg, while I work on that a little bit. I'll start with you and then go to Steve. Obviously, the first 2 years, and when of course the year that Steve had left the transfer portal and he was ineligible and waiting to come from Kansas State. It was challenging, especially in year 2. That was my senior year as a manager. It might have been one of the more challenging teams that Coach Keady had. But you guys stuck together. And in '83, obviously, did some really good things and won so many games in the last second. 84, you guys win the Big Ten championship when people picked you ninth or 10th in the Big Ten. Talk about that perspective. And you and Greg have had such a long-term relationship again with Gene Keady over the years. He's had so much respect for the person that you are, but what that's meant to you over the years.
It's been amazing. It was amazing 4 years when we were there. And to start off, I mean, Ricky Hall and Russell Cross and myself were like his first class coming in.
And John Lawson.
Yeah. John Lawson.
From Western Kentucky.
And it's so funny because Coach always tells the story. He says, if you guys didn't win your senior year, I would have been fired. He said, so I owe you guys my career because I would have been out of there. But, I think all the guys on here had the same sentiments that, he was tough in practice, but the minute you walked off the court, he was your best friend. And, he had an open door policy. You could always go in and talk to him. And, even through life now, I mean, he's always made himself available to us and been available to any of his players, former players. And, I probably still talk to him once or twice a month, just either he calling me or I call him. But, he's just been an amazing man and amazing part of my life.
Yeah, and you've been a big part of his for sure. Steve, your dad, and I've said this before when you and I have talked, he had a very close relationship with your dad, Duncan, but also, and I think maybe they were cut out of the same cloth a little bit. I don't know. But you also just, you brought such a life to the backcourt and came in and gave Purdue exactly what it needed at the time, and along with Ricky Hall and all that, but a little bit of an attitude that was a good thing. But talk about those talking points or those learning things that stick with you from those first couple of years of playing for Coach. And then we'll have to ask you about how come you only hit 3 out of 6 free throws when Bob Knight threw the chair. We'll ask you that too, but talk about that.
Yeah, a lot of, first of all, I want to congratulate Coach, long overdue, getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. I was glad he got, because when they said that he was being nominated for the Hall of Fame, I misread it. And I texted him and I said, congratulations for your induction. And he said, did I get in? And I said, oops, I jumped the gun a little bit. So fortunately that happened. But yeah, Coach, recruiting stories, he's the only coach I had. He was at Western Kentucky and recruited me to go to Western Kentucky. And I ended up going to Kansas State. And of course, that's his alma mater. Yeah. And he's the only coach that called me up, thanked me for the opportunity to have been able to recruit it, family, all those kind of things, wish me luck. Then when I call a year later and tell him, I want to transfer to Purdue, he said, well, let me think about it. And so for 2 days, I didn't know if I was going to be able to transfer or not. And he calls me up a couple days later and had me on board. So yeah, he's just one of those guys. There's things you do every day in life, whether it's in business, whether it's dealing with your family, with your friends. There's principles that he instilled in you that if you look at his career, those were consistent throughout his career, whether you were his first recruiting class or his last recruiting class. There were some things: get to class, be on time, be respectful, represent the university, yourself. All those things stayed consistent. What he did was he was able to adapt with change over time, right? I remember when I was there, we had 2 freshmen that decided getting their hair shaved would be a good idea, and they went bald before bald was cool. And he came in and absolutely blew up and said, if anybody pulls another stunt like that, you're going to be sent home on a bus. And then, later on, you got tattoos and you got all the other stuff. And he was, so he adapted with the time. But I got to tell a good story on Troy and Everett, and Dodd did not hear. So I'm a senior. These guys come in as freshmen. Coach Keady brings me, Bullock, and Mark Atkinson into the office and said, you guys are the seniors. We got 3 kids in here that are really talented and I think are going to do a lot of good things with the program. So I apologize to you, but we're going to have preseason conditioning is going to be extra tough this year because those 3 need to learn how to work. And about the first week, we're getting done with training, with our preseason training, and we'd run around campus. I don't know, it was a 4-mile run or so. And Troy is sitting in his locker. I think he may have already gotten sick in the bathroom, but he's sitting in his locker, shaking his head, going, I should have gone to Kansas. I don't know why I'm here. I should have gone to Kansas. So And I know why he was able to recruit you and Everette Bow, Troy. You looked at this and there's no way I can't play in front of that guy. I mean, they got this little guy playing. I can get minutes from him pretty easily.
No, you were a Big Ten champ.
And Everette, you never blocked my shot, and it's one of my proudest accomplishments.
What?
In all of practice, you never blocked my shot one time.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you stick with that.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that one. All right, Cuonzo, I'm getting to you, and obviously Brandon McKnight, because Brandon played at the end, and I know he got Brandon. You're going to have to be answering the question of how soft he got in his years, which probably wasn't true. But Cuonzo, and and now I see the coach there. Everybody see him on the screen,
Coach.
But I don't think he's got his audio on. But you can wave to him. But he's smiling. I don't know if
Hey, Coach.
no matter what happens, we'll get this video to you. But Cuonzo, he was obviously no individual. He was more prouder than you in terms not only what you were as a player, what you went through, but also what you did professionally. But talk about that road from East St. Louis to West Lafayette. He didn't lock you in his car? I don't remember what the recruiting story was on you, but maybe Glenn had something to do with it. I don't know. But how'd you get to West Lafayette?
Right.
Well, the story was, as people know, it was probably a lock to go to Illinois just because of in East St. Louis, Alfonso Ellis, he was supposed to go to Illinois. So the transition would have been a smooth one. And then when they got in that trouble with the Deion Thomas, that situation, I opened my recruitment up, and it pretty much came down to Purdue and Connecticut. I went to visit Connecticut with Jim Calhoun and obviously Coach Keady, and the reason being, my circle, and I say circle team of people, which is small, my mom, my best friend's dad, they felt like I needed a father figure, a man, and somebody that can hold me accountable. Not that I kicked up a lot of dust in high school, but I think the transition from East St. Louis and the things that I needed to be successful in life, it came down to Coach Calhoun. And the night before I made my decision, I don't remember every word my mom said, but I do remember vividly. She said, Gene Keady seems like a nice man. And that was my mom's way of saying that's the place for you to go. And I was in tears the night before. I just wasn't sure because Illinois was talked about for so much as a kid coming up. And I made the decision to go to Purdue. And, between Coach Weber, Coach Keady, and Frank Kendrick, those guys were diligent in their pursuit of trying to get me to come to Purdue because my high school coach, and I love him, and I say this all in a positive way, he wasn't the toughest one to get to. So in order to get to me at the high school, almost like you had to knock doors down, you had to find me at the Wendy's hanging out with my buddies. But my high school coach, he didn't meet with a lot of people, so it worked out. And it was really in sport the best decision I ever made because the coach was a tremendous leader and teacher. And of course, he did the accolades for being a coach. But for me, he taught me how to raise my level and to commit to being successful and the understanding of what it takes to be successful, how hard you have to play and the sacrifice to be great. And it was every day. And then he understood the ability of critiquing and criticism. Coach never broke spirits, in my opinion. I thought he was a phenomenal guy in the way he approached it because he was a teacher by trade. So when people say old school, for me, I'm not sure what that means because it can't mean age because Coach adjusted to the times and Coach, old school guys, everybody thought that you son of a bitch, and just beat you down. Coach had never beat me down. I never felt that around our guys. I thought he did a tremendous job of communicating to us. And I thought what he did best was he taught us how to have enough courage to raise our expectations. You got to believe in more than where you currently sit. You got to believe more. And that's why we won so many Big Ten championships. And Coach was a phenomenal coach, but we had good players. I think a lot of times Purdue didn't get the credit outside of Glenn Robinson, certain guys, Troy, and those guys, like those are the guys. We had a lot of good players. I think Coach staff didn't get the credit for beating the bushes, finding the diamonds in the rough, and doing their homework to figure out what was best for Coach Keady. Everybody else had these stars, but those guys didn't work at a level. They didn't have the chemistry, the camaraderie, the commitment as a team to be successful. Coach Staff did a phenomenal job of picking the right guys to create a great program. And obviously, we had phenomenal runs and it was just successful to be a part of it. And the other thing I think Coach did was great, and it showed me, not that I ever doubted him, but it showed me the type of man he was. When he had Glenn and I, we were roommates, and Glenn, I love him, Glenn like a brother to me, but he had us as roommates, and we wanted to move off campus after our freshman year. And Coach didn't allow us to move off campus. He had us stay on campus another year. Neither one of us talked about, man, we need to transfer. Why Coach treating us like this? it was just we got mad at coach and we just took it out on each other in practice, took it out on guys in practice. We made ourselves better players, but we weren't happy about it. But as you get older, you respect the fact that the man had enough in him to say, no, this is what you're going to do. And we never had family members calling coach, why they got to stay in an apartment for another year? We had other guys that were sophomores that moved off campus. So it was a lot of respect that did, and I'll go a step further. I know I'm winded here, but his staff was phenomenal. Like for example, Coach Weber, you'd be down in hooping on the court, and Coach Weber, yeah, down there. Zoe, did you take out the chemistry exam? Did you fill out your financial aid papers? Like, oh, so it was a team that made it go, and I think that's what made it successful.
Yes.
Well said. Well said. Brandon, I know it didn't get easier you were there the last 4 years and had some success. You got the NCAA tournament. In the last 2 years were challenging, but what was that like? You know, even in again that type of relationship you had with him, but also in that very magical time that was difficult in some ways. Saying goodbye to the coach in 2005, but very memorable game against Minnesota. But how have your experience played out over the years since you've been in West Lafayette?
Well, I mean, similar to like what everybody said on this call, Coach Keady was a father figure to me. I knew I was going to Purdue before they even recruited me. Growing up, watching Big Dog, Cuonzo, and BC, it was a done deal. And I remember when Cuonzo Martin came to my house in my basement with my mom, and they offered me. I was very excited. And once I met Coach Keady, I was just, I was thinking he was going to tell me how great I am and how many points I scored. That's the reason why he offered me. And then he said, you know why I offered you, babe? I said, no, coach, I'm just waiting for him to tell me, I'm just fast as lightning. Like, because you stopped at the free throw line. I'm like, stop at the free throw line. That's why you offered me. So it was just those little things, the detail that make him who I am today, right? Like in the profession that I am now, I pay attention to detail. I'm always I love to compete. And in those last 2 years, they were rough, right? Yeah. But never did he say fold. Right? Never did he say give up. Never did he stop, pressing hard. So, I mean, kudos to him. Well deserved. And I'm just blessed even to be able to play.
Yeah, well, and playing hard was a common thread for everybody on this call, and that was certainly something that he instilled. Nate Barrett, your grandfather, had a close relationship to him, and even as a young man, you had the opportunity to be around him and see him growing up, and obviously have stayed in touch with Coach Keady over the years. But this Hall of Fame is a big deal would be a big deal for your grandpa as well.
He'd absolutely love it. And it's cool, Adam, to see all my childhood and teenage heroes assembled on one ball. What a thrill. I think first guys have coached with his Chrysler New Yorker. Yeah. And later moved on to these LHSs. And as I started to get learning the car business, my first job, my grandfather, very much like Coach Keady would say, my grandfather said, you got to learn from the bottom up. So I would be doing things like maybe helping clean Coach Keady's demo when he turned it back in and get that cigar smoke out of it. So we with things like that. But, my earliest memories of him are he'd sign a basketball and it would always say something like, keep working hard. That was always the inscription. And then I have to say now at age 43 and watching all you guys and, you're the bedrock of Purdue basketball. But when I see him come in a room at a golf outing, it's still the same thrill as when I met him for the first time.
Yeah, well said. I think the funniest thing to say to him, and he laughs, is, Gene, you are a rock star. You are you come into Mack Arena and you got everybody's looking for you, and you put him on the video thing. And I don't know if he knows how to. I don't know if any of us would know how to deal with that, but he is absolutely an 86, almost 87-year-old rock star for sure. Glenn Robinson, I'll come back to you just in terms of you come in with all the accolades and known as a hard worker, but how did he push you? I mean, from that standpoint, what buttons did he push? Or Bruce or Frank or guys in the coaching staff that helped do that. But what kind of things did he do to make you better, you think?
Well, the biggest thing, I didn't want him to get on my case too hard. So that was a good enough incentive to just go out there and play as hard as I can and just do the best that I can. One thing about Coach is, even though I was a scorer, it wasn't really about scoring. It was about going out there and just trying to do the best that you can and trying to play as hard as you can. And hey, I didn't want him. I mean, Coach can light some fire up under you.
Yes, he can.
And that was the thing that I was always afraid of, is not to get the fire lit up under me. So I mean, it was just always it was just an honor to play for Coach. And going back to what Cuonzo said, just the whole staff, they just push you to be the best that you can be. And Bruce used to get on me about doing other things, rebounding, playing defense, shooting a better percentage out there, things like that. So I mean, just overall, the whole coaching staff, they all had something to help push you guys. And once again, I just wanted to stay out of trouble. I didn't want to get on Coach's bad side. So that was a good enough incentive for me to go out and just try to play as hard as I can.
Yeah, I think you did that in every chance you had. All right, I want to think that's interesting with Brian Cardinal, and I think that a common theme, and it's not to get all mushy, but it's a term. It might be tough love, but it's also love here. And I think, Brian, I'll never forget in a disappointing moment at the end of the game against Wisconsin in your last game, and it was a picture on the cover of our magazine, and you in the locker room. But that moment of yes, it was disappointment that you didn't get to the Final Four. I understand it. But the fact that you openly showed that even though you might have driven him crazy from time to time, you openly love this guy. But talk about that. I mean, I think it's a very unique situation and something that still, I think, happens today, but it doesn't happen a lot. But it happened when I think with everybody in this room, there was that measure of that true admiration, love, whatever term you want to use. But Brian, put that into perspective.
Well, I think it was an honor to follow in the footsteps of a lot of people on here, and to be able to put on that Purdue uniform, to be able to have Coach Keady and Coach Weber coming to my house, and I still remember Coach Keady sitting down on the couch, and I was a big Illinois guy. My dad was at Illinois for 30-something years, finished 40-something years at Illinois, and I still remember Coach Keady sitting down and saying, "What the hell's going on with Illinois?" You talk about just he was just very passionate, and that's Coach Keady was and is. And I was just proud to put on a Purdue uniform. I was proud to represent the university. And we talk about you talk about Final Fours. You talk about getting to a Final Four, and as a player, that's what you want to do, is to get to a Final Four. And for me, I didn't want to get to a Final Four for me. I wanted to get to a Final Four for Coach Keady. And that's what was the most crushing part about that game. Wasn't for me. It didn't matter to me. I wanted to get there for him, because I think we would all agree is that's what validates your career as a head coach. Right or wrong, that's what people look at. And as disappointing as it was, I am so grateful that he's getting into the Hall of Fame, because it's right, it's just, he belongs there.
That's right.
And I'm grateful to be a small part of his basketball history. And that Wisconsin game still crushes me to this day. And you go back and like everybody on here, you can go back and you remember certain plays and certain moments, and I wish there was a few things that I could have done differently in that game to help Coach Keady get there.
Yeah, there were also some pretty good moments. Did you ever lose a game to Illinois, by the way?
No.
Oh, okay. I was gonna let you say that.
Finished 9-0, 9-0. I brought that up quite a bit to my dad. 1-0, 2-0, 4-0. Finally, at 5-0, he was just like, "Stop! I don't want to talk about it."
I know Bruce has got some mixed emotions about that, but he was on the bench for at least those first 2 years when you were there. Steven Scheffler, your situation too. You got yourself to a point as a player where you were an all Big Ten level player after kind of working your way. Didn't get to play a lot as a freshman. But that tough love part of Gene Keady, talk about that, and also just the fact that maybe how that's resonated with the rest of your life in terms of how you've been able to move your life forward.
I didn't necessarily appreciate the love when I was at Purdue as much as I do after Purdue.
Yeah.
I just remember the tough part. I remember, I don't know if Troy and Everett remember this, but my introduction was we're at Wichita State and the game went into overtime. and the timeout consisted of, gentlemen, if we don't win this game tonight, take practice when we get home. And me and Lucas sat at the end of the bench and we screamed our lungs out because it was like, Coach just terrified me. I mean, you talk about haircuts. I had a couple of guys down the hall give me a haircut one time as a freshman. And I wasn't trying to go bald or have a bad haircut, but I think Troy and the way you guys laughed about it, you probably even remember that. And I went into coach and he let the team go. And then he was like, Scheffler, you represent the University of Purdue and your haircut looks like blank. And if you ever do that again, you can forget dressing for the next home game. So I was like, yes, sir. But I guess the best part of love that I had from coach, and I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I was petrified going like, oh,
here's
God,
a motivator.
He's going to kill me. He's going to kill me. Was I went to the wrong area. I was in the locker room my freshman year when the team was having a meeting in the other room just right down the hall. And the penalty was you got to do Mackey Arena 100 times. And I remember Doug Lee walked in and it's like, where were you? And I was like, I was right here. We always said afterwards. He's like, you messed up. And coach let me off and he didn't make me do the 100 times up and down Mackey. And I felt guilty about that for the longest time. But that was very kind, but well,
no, hey, Steve,
the other coaches. Yes.
No, I was going to say those steps are still there. You can still finish them up.
Yeah, I'm too old and too fat now, so I thought about that before, but I thought, oh no, But I remember going to other teams and other players wouldn't touch the lines when they're doing the down and backs, and I would be like just tripping out because it's like, man, we'd have to touch the half court line just during warm-ups. I mean, I was afraid to miss a layup during warm-ups. I'm like, what are you guys thinking?
Now, Bruce,
so definitely, it was like you want to do really good. Yeah. Or I just remember being in practice. I don't know if you guys remember this, but it was like, if the offensive team gets another rebound, you're all running. If the defensive team gets another rebound, you're all running. And if the brother-in-law hacks, you're all running. It's like, I think we're running, guys. And he taught you how to make a lot of other things a lot easier for the rest of your life.
Yes, amen.
And I think it's true. Bruce, I'm going to ask you something. This is a little bit out of left field, but both you and Cuonzo have obviously coached the highest level, well into the 21st century. How would, and Gene obviously coached well into the 21st century too, but in today's world, how would the coach, not how would he do, but how would he adjust to the world of NIL and transfer portal and all of that? We talked about how I think Steve Reid said that he was always great at adjusting to things, but he would have probably gone with an opinion, I would guess, on how the college basketball world has evolved over the last bit of time.
Yeah, but I agree with Steve. And when I do clinics, the first thing I talk about with Coach Keady is that the word that he taught me, besides loyalty was the most important thing that he always talked about, which really means nothing in this day and age, sadly, in college basketball. But the other word was flexibility. And he told me a long time ago, if you're not flexible as a coach, you're not going to stay in the business. And that's why he stayed in it. And Steve mentioned it. He was able to adjust with haircuts or whatever it might be, styles of play. When Glenn came, this has nothing to do with you, Zoe, but Glenn was pretty good. He he sent me to Coach Pitino and with the Celtics and said, we got to press. We got to, use Glenn's talent. And I went for a week and watched practice, and we came back and we pressed, and he had really not pressed in a long time, I think, since Hutch. So I think he would have adjusted. Obviously, whether you talk to Matt Painter or Tom Izzo or whoever you talk to right now, it's not an easy thing with NIL or portal, and it's nothing with the kids getting money, because it's great that, I think we all agree they should have got something a long time ago. But, I think the big thing, and Coach, you guys all talk about it, he just wanted you to earn it. If you earn it, he was happy with it. And obviously all you guys on here have been successful, and you've earned it. So, and hopefully he had a little bit of part of that, and through his changing. One quick story is, I was the coach when I went to Southern Illinois. All of a sudden he called me and he said, I have a question for you. And I said, you have a question for me, Coach? And I'm like, I'm supposed to call you. It's the other way around. He goes, do you have any parents that call you? And I just started laughing. And that was when parents started getting involved. And, you guys know your parents, unless you got in trouble, they were going the other way. Brandon Brantley's mom and dad would always walk the other way because they thought Brandon was in trouble. So it's, but parents started calling, and then I said, yeah, Coach, some parents call. He goes, can you believe it? They even call me now. And I'm like, yeah, you have to adjust with the Coach. And he did. That's why he was so good. And that's why he's in the Hall of Fame, to be honest.
Yeah. And
very true.
The Lifetime Service Award, and yet it's really more than that. It's the Lifetime Expertise Award. I mean, he obviously had success wherever he went. That was a big part. Everette Stephens, I still have to, maybe you're not even aware of this stuff. There's two things I remember most, and you did many, many other things, but the happy-go-lucky Dolphin comment, but also with the time that I think Michigan had beaten you guys your junior year quite handily at with the Antoine Joubert game and all that. You go back up there and play them, and it's Dick Vitale and national TV Sunday game. And I think either before or after the game's the story, if it's urban legend or not, you ask if your mom can sing the national anthem for senior day. Is that true? And is that an indication of that relationship? Because you've got a built-in smile anyway, so he probably didn't think it might have been serious enough. You were, but tell us, are either one of those stories the least bit true?
Yes, it is true. Happy-go-lucky because I was smiling out there because, this when I played, I just wanted to have fun and have it to where, it wasn't so much of a stress when you're out there playing, even though, good and well, you're out there playing hard. And, playing underneath Coach Keady, he's just one of those types of coaches that could ream you, tell you what you're doing wrong, and then you will go out there and play harder. I don't know what it was about. I've never had any other coach who had that type of ability. And for me, it just helped me as well as my teammates just to go out there and put it all together, and try to do our best. So, yes, it's our last game against Michigan at Michigan. And, after he gave us our pre-talk and all about what we need to do with our assignments, I waited for everyone to go out and I asked Coach, can I have a talk with him? And I asked him, I said, I got a question. Do you mind if for our last game at home that if my mom sing the national anthem? And he looked at me like, can she sing? Most people get in front of 15,000 people and they lock up and all. And I said, yeah, she can sing. I really felt she could do it, and I gave her the confidence to do it. As far as I felt like she could relax herself and being able to sing because she was a good singer. And of course, we went out there, and of course, it's a big game as well. And I think Coach Weber said that, Coach Keady said to Coach Weber, yeah, we just lost him. Good luck for this game. My mind was on the game. But of course, my mind was. It was just something that I had just had been wanting to try to find the time to ask them.
Yeah, it was a great story, and I'm glad it's really true, because it was an indication of that relationship. Troy Lewis, one of my favorite pictures, and I don't know if you have it in your vault, is a picture where Gene's got his arms crossed, and you've got your arms like kind of around his neck, like trying to explain to him, hey, it's going to be all right, coach. So we're going to take care of this. But again, you had that personality too. I mean, all you guys were competitive guys, but you were also a nice guy. How did you turn that? You obviously were a competitive guy all along, but how that, what did he do to fine tune that real ultra competitiveness in you, or did you already have it and he just brought it to another level?
Yeah, I already had it, and he brought it to another. Like Glenn talked about, and other people talk about, he raised your level of who you are as a player. You think you're playing hard, but until you get on campus there, and Reid alluded to it, the workout we had my freshman year, I ran 2 weeks before I got to Purdue, thought I was in shape, and it was nowhere near where it should be. So I learned my lesson right then, that how hard I'm playing, I'm not playing that hard. So he always pushed us to that level. Now, with the arms around picture, what actually happened, we were playing Illinois, and I threw the ball away. And then I come down, I took a bad shot.
Oh, you should have been on the bench by then.
then we come down, I foul. And then in Mackey Arena, you heard, Troy. In the back of my mind, I was like, oh, shit. I was like, uh-oh. I said, I got to diffuse this here, boy. Coach was mad. And what was funny about it is when I put my arms around him, he said, son, are you gambling? He made me laugh. He's the one who diffused the whole situation. So it relaxed me more than the other way around. So
that's great.
That's the type of coach he is. And also, I got to tell the story what type of person coach is. I mean, I'm out of school. This is in the 90s. And I get a call from my mom, and she said, hey, Coach Keady's coming down, and he's going to help me with my ceremonial Martin Luther King statue. And I'm like, what? And I was just so taken back by that he's not all about who you are as a basketball player. It's about who you are as a person in your family. He took care of your family as well. And I'm always indebted to that, because to this day, my mom, I mean, she's passed away now, but she always talked about how he came down and helped her out to commemorate the statue of Martin Luther King in my hometown. So that's what kind of guy he is.
That is the depth of him.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Steve Reid. I think, obviously you had the opportunity to play, and I do want to ask you about the 6 free throws. And I know you've told this story 100 times. It's a great story, but I also want to talk about the fact that you had to broadcast games when he was on the sideline. What that was like for you. And Gene was always good. He'd eye with Larry and the great Larry Clisby. They had a great relationship, and he wanted everything positive. That was Gene. But talk about, first I want to ask you about the free throws. Now, do you have dreams of that? Do you? I know it's 30 years later, almost. Excuse me, almost 40 years later, I should say. God, that's crazy. But talk about that experience and what he said to you when you came off the court, and then also just that relationship too, of being the announcer and working with him in that relationship.
Yeah, so the chair throwing thing. First of all, I blame Troy Lewis, because he probably should have shot the free throws to start with. I mean, I don't know why I shot him, but
I'd have been scared to death, bro.
That was a wild crowd.
It was wild.
Yes, it was.
I've never shot 6 free throws in a row in the game, right? So I didn't mentally know really how to process that. And unfortunately, I switched the first 2. So you're in rhythm. I'm thinking, okay, we're going to make 6 points. We get the ball. We can crank this thing up to a dozen 14-point lead, right? We can really get this game opened up early, and then we can start taking the air. So I'm thinking all these things, and I forget to go through. So I missed the third one. And then I missed the fourth one, and I turn around and he's going, I think he was motioning for me to get off the line. And I did one of those, I'll take care of this, coach, would put my hand up, like, don't take me out of the game. I missed the fifth one. So I've missed 3 in a row. And everybody knows the 3 things you don't do on the road. You don't shoot an air ball. You don't miss a dunk. I never had to worry about that. And you don't miss technical fouls. It just gets the crowd riled up. So now they've got 3 in a row. It just keeps getting louder and louder. And I don't know how I made the last one. So I made the last one, 3 for 6. We don't score on the possession. So only got 3 points out of a potential 8-point. Well, everybody knows with Coach Keady, he usually only deals with the last play before a timeout. So if you make a mistake and you can get 2 or 3 possessions in between that mistake and the next timeout, you're usually pretty safe. So we had played a couple more minutes, and I think maybe I even made a shot or something, or made an assist. I'm thinking, all right, I should be in the clear. We get over to the bench, and he spent the entire time basically, Steve, that's ridiculous. I've seen you make 90 free throws out of 100 every day in practice since you've been here. You're a senior. That's poor leadership, et cetera, et cetera. At any point, he said, if we lose this game, it's on you. And Troy and Everett was on the bench, but Troy and Todd were playing. We got out of the huddle. I said, guys, I think I'm serious. We lose, I may have to ride back with my wife, because I don't think I'll be able to get on the bus. And fortunately, we won. So, I was able to do that. But, then I got a chance to do the radio, and that was probably just a great experience, because everybody I think on this call can attest that when you're in the moment, you're playing, you're wearing the Purdue uniform, you're so tied up in tomorrow's practice, the next game preparation, you don't really stop and enjoy the moment that you're in, really, right? Because you're just kind of going through everything's a step in a process. Getting a chance to do the radio, I could sit back and kind of watch and say, man, this is a pretty cool experience these guys are going through. They'll realize it when they get older, but right now, they're going through the motions kind of like we all did while you're playing. So that was a great experience. Now, the only bad part was Clisby's a smart guy. And so when I get on board, I'm new. I don't know anything. He goes, hey, I think you're going to have to do the post-game interviews. So I'd have to go into the locker room, and do post-game interviews with Coach. And that was fine when you won, but man, there was nothing worse than walking from that radio booth up the tunnel and we had to go in the old, you guys remember the old coach's locker room that was across the hallway from our old locker room, right? That's where I had to do the interviews. And half the time he was coming out of the shower. And so I never quite knew, how to handle that. And was never, after losses, it was just asking 2 questions, let him go, and that'll be enough. Don't belabor the point. But it was a tremendous experience. Got a chance to see him from a different perspective, right, than being a player and being close like that. It was fun. I got a chance to see Cuonzo. Probably one of the best basketball games I ever called was when Cuonzo and his group went up to Michigan State and beat a really good team up there at Michigan State. That was a great moment. Then we went out to Hawaii. In fact, I think when I first started, we went to Hawaii right to begin with, and Cuonzo had a duo with Fred Hoiberg, and so just a tremendous amount of experience. But it was fun because you could see Coach Keady still. Everybody knew if the bus left at 6, you better be there at 10 till 6, right? I mean, and so those were what I'm talking about. He was consistent throughout with the little things, the things that really, the details I think Brandon mentioned earlier, right? He was consistent with those every year, and he's done a great job. Not as a coach, Bruce Weber mentioned loyalty. I remember Greg Eifert and I driving to practice after Greg's junior year, after my sophomore year, and Coach was flirting around with Arizona State at the time, and we
may have lost.
And just a testament to him, the loyalty that he had towards Purdue, towards his players, towards his staff. Not enough good things you can say about him in this short a time.
Yeah, no question.
No kidding.
Alan, can I jump in real quick?
Yes, you can.
The bus story. This is a story what happened on the bus with me. Everett was late we're at Illinois State. We're going to Illinois State. Everett was late on the bus going to the airport. And Coach Keady said, Everett can't start because we just lost the game before. So, everybody knows the carryover after a loss is crazy. Yeah. So that week of practice was crazy anyway, but that's a whole different story. So Everett was late on the bus. Coach Keady gets up. He ain't starting, tells everybody in front of the bus, stands up in front of the bus. Everett ain't starting. So we get to Illinois State. You know how you practice day before. So I'm sitting in the room, and next thing you know, there's a knock on the door. I got my practice stuff on and stuff, and and I opened the door, and it was Coach Keady. He said, "Troy, you're late." I said, "No, I'm not. I looked at the clock. The clock was slow in my hotel room. Todd already left. He went down to Everett's room or whatever. And I said, but the clock is slow. I said, I'm not late. I'm never late. I was never late to anything.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, I benched Everett. So I'm gonna bench you. And I had a string. I've been starting ever since my freshman year. And I was more mad at Everett. Because if Everett wouldn't have been late, I would have been starting. But that's how Coach was. Coach didn't care. Like the bus, you got to be there early. If you're not there, you're not going to play.
Greg Eifert, known for the ultimate role player, but defense, toughness, all the things that you brought to the table. And yet that year, your senior year, the fact that you guys go on and win a Big Ten championship when nobody thought that you could. Was there any point in time? I wouldn't think that with Coach Keady that there was much of you paid a lot of attention to where you were in the standings. You just kept going. But what a magical year that was. But what do you take from that experience, and what did you learn from how he handled you guys down the stretch? Because you had to come up big at Minnesota, and Ricky Hall hit a free throw at the end for you to win. But talk about that.
I think we just had a group of guys that all we wanted to do was win and play hard, and we were smart. We weren't very talented. Obviously, we weren't the most talented group that Coach had over the years, but I think we wanted to play hard. We wanted to win for Coach, and everybody gave it everything they had, when they were in there. And that's, like everybody, as we all said, we had to play hard on our butts, and everybody in this call here all know what that means. We laid it all out there on the court for them. And, that season was magical. Nobody expected us to do anything. And then when we started winning and end up 15-3 in the Big Ten, it was just unbelievable. But it was just, a lot of hard work and a lot of, Coach believing in us and the coaching staff believing in us. And, like I said earlier, Coach says we saved his job for him. So I think he appreciated that group that year. But like I said, we weren't the most talented. I'll tell you my best Coach Keady story was after I graduated. I came back the next year because my wife, Julie, was a senior there. And so I came back to some of the games. Of course, Steve and I were very close. So we came back to watch, Steve play. And my wife was actually in the hospital down there in Lafayette. She had thrown her back out, and she was in the hospital. And somehow Coach found out about that. I'm not sure how. But anyways, he comes up to do his radio show after the game and walks by me. And they had lost that game. And he comes up and walks by me and says hi, shakes my hand, everything. He says, "Hey, how's Julie doing?" And that just typifies how Coach is. He cares so much about all of our families, and whether it be our kids or, he's asked me 100 times about my boys and Grady and Tyler. And, he's just always cared about us, not only as players, but as people and families more than anything, which I think means everything to all of us.
Great story. And we are getting along here, and yet it is the internet, so we can stay on here all night if you guys want to. But I wanted to go back to Cuonzo. I think the greatest first half in the history of Purdue, probably in the NCAA, was Glenn Robinson against Kansas. The greatest second half would be hard to argue what Cuonzo Martin did shooting those threes. And one of the great games, really, in certainly in Purdue history, went beating Kansas in the Sweet 16. Any story from that? Did he tap you on? You caught on fire. It was such a competitive game. Cuonzo, you put the T in tough throughout your entire career, but was that one of those experiences where did he say anything to you? Do you have any memories of that? Or are you guys just trying to survive that game? What do you take from that game? And then we're going to go around the horn. Everybody can tell their favorite story before we wrap up. So go ahead, Cuonzo.
Well, not really. Coach didn't do a lot of talking to me, especially as an older guy in a situation like that. I know my sophomore year, like Coach Weber would probably come over as opposed to Coach saying, man, shoot the ball, be aggressive. Because I was so consumed with the game defensively. That's how I looked at it. Just doing my job, trying to shut whoever I was defending down. So I would pass up shots sometime. And part of that pass up when I was a freshman, if I was wide open, I missed that 15, 17 foot, and I look over the side, Coach slammed his jacket on the floor. So I'm not shooting that next one. So it's like, now all of a sudden I was shooting that next one. Coach said, get out, come on, baby, you got to come out. You're afraid to shoot. It's like, oh, Coach, I'm off balance. So what happened, it was just putting the time into it and really working and working and working. And really all I truly ever cared about was winning basketball games. And I took pride. Whoever the best player, I want to shut him down. And it was a joy for me to see Glenn out there on the floor scoring 34, whatever that was. That brought me joy because it was all about winning. I think the biggest key for us as a team amongst each other, we had to make it clear, like, Glenn's the guy. Everybody has to follow the lead. And that's not an easy thing when everybody want to have a level of success. So you have to be able to foster those relationships. But we spent a lot of time together away from the game. I'm talking about every weekend we'd be together for an hour or two as a team. Then guys would branch off and do their thing. But we made it clear this is how we're going to win basketball games. We're going to flow through dog. And for me, it was just a matter. When I left high school, I was basically a big man at 6'5", 180 pounds, slashing around the rim layups, no jump shots, anything. So when I got to Purdue, you're talking about a high school, we played a diamond press back to a 2-3 zone in high school. So when I got to college, now all of a sudden it's a man-to-man. Now I have to learn how to play on the perimeter. and I didn't shoot jump shots. It was just all layups. So now I had to really work on my game to become a better basketball player. And just hours and hours. And the stuff that maybe the police officers might have told Coach and those guys about it, but me, Glenn Robinson, and Tim Irvin, who's a walk-on for us, we'd be in the gym at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning just playing one-on-one, and there's really ball handling, just playing. And the scores be up to, 1,000, 900. We just going. And that's how we got better. We just competed. And it was just, we just found our way. And then for us, like Glenn and myself, we were guys, man, outside of love, there was nothing to go back home to. So we had to make it go. And with all due respect with Dog, it wasn't like he was sitting there every day. I'm going to be an NBA player. Man, he wanted to be at Purdue. I mean, that's what it was. It wasn't talked about at NBA all the time. He knew at some point it was what it was, and he had to go. But he wanted to be the best player right there. And he took pride in whatever that was, and he worked his job. I've never been around a guy, I know he's on the call, that worked as hard as Dog in a practice. Yeah. I mean, Dog competed in practice like it was an actual game. And when your best player is at that level, everybody else had no choice but to get to that level.
Made a big difference from that standpoint. Brandon, you were a part of his last NCAA tournament win, obviously beating LSU and then giving Texas all it could handle, as I recall, in your sophomore year. That experience of again, having some success in your first part of your for a couple of your years, and it's a couple of years where it wasn't as successful. Any change in his demeanor down the stretch with how he coached in his last couple of years? And obviously you had to spend a year or two with Matt Painter being the coach in waiting, but talk about that experience a little bit.
Yeah, he did not change at all. It was tough. And also too, Zoe was the same way, right? Zoe and Eddie, I still had to pick up full court no matter what our record was, no matter how many points we scored, still pick up full court. And, as he would say, you got to be full of piss and vinegar, babe.
Yeah, I love that term. What is that? Again, I want to know what that is.
One time I came into practice, I wasn't full of piss and vinegar. And he looked at me and said, Brandon, what did you do last night? I'm like, do anything. Like I knew we had practice more. I didn't do anything. Well, do something next time. Shit. So he never changed. You still had to come bring it every single day.
Well, God love all.
Then maybe you should have checked your whole card.
Yeah, there we go. We used to write down, because I was in the SID office for a while. We would write down, I should have put it in a book, some of the greatest Gene Keady-isms of all time. My favorite one, a guy in our office, Bruce remembers. I mean, a lot of you guys may have remembered a guy named Bob Goldering, who had a very wicked sense of humor. But it's hard to look into somebody's head to see how big their heart is. That was one of my all-time favorites. Like, wait, does that make any sense? No, it probably doesn't. but it worked from that standpoint. All right, open forum for those of you that want to stay on for a little bit longer. I appreciate it so much. This is gold for. I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy watching this. But this is now your time. I'm going to let you just go individually because I don't want to put you on the spot. But your favorite Gene Keady stories, positive. Even if it's more of a sentimental view, whatever you want to bring forward, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'll start with this one. We were ranked pretty high. I don't know how high we was ranked, 1 or 2 or something in the country.
Number 2, you got to number 2.
And we were playing at Louisville, and we doing our practice before the night before the game, and our second string was hitting everything. We going halfway through the motions and stuff, the first team, and the Coach Keady just got so ticked off, felt like we weren't playing hard enough and focused, thought we were just too conceited and too, reading our clippings and all he would say. And so he got so mad at us because the second team was just destroying us. And he looked at us, man, and told us, he screamed at us, "Get the heck out of my face and go down to the other end. You bitches are horrible." Just cursing us out. So we walking like, what's up? Really? The second team was just getting lucky. And, so we walked down to the other end. As we was walking down to the other end, I just remember Todd saying, "Man, I mess around like that old man out." And we just started laughing as we was walking. I looked over my shoulder like, man, I hope he wasn't too close to hear that. But it was one of those things where Coach always wanted that hard play. And of course, we weren't conceited. We were at a good point of knowing who we were and what we were capable of doing. And it showed because the next game we went out there, and the next day we went out there and we just destroyed Louisville. So it was just one of those things where, man, you got to come with it with Coach every night.
Yeah, Alan, there's a ton of them.
Yeah, I understand. Go ahead, my friend.
There's a ton of them, and I might steal Greg's, but this is when I knew Coach was intense. I had redshirted my first year, so I didn't travel with the team on the road and didn't really know what the road routine was like. And we go out and play Boston University. I think Rick Pitino was the coach, if I'm not mistaken. Right. And we're going for the pregame walk around. We thought was a walk around. So you go. Everybody knows you go there. You don't go with tape. You really don't even have practice uniforms on. You probably got sweats. You really weren't prepared to do anything but walk through, maybe do a few shooting drills, free throws, etc. And all of a sudden, Coach Keady got ticked off about something, and we're running full speed. I mean, this is a full out practice. We're going live, and Coach Greg looks over at Coach Weber, goes, "Coach, we ain't taped." And Coach just kind of rolls his eyes like, "Well, what am I going to do about it?" we went through a 45-minute just wide open practice, and the other one, and Troy and Everett probably remember this. I was there for 4 years. I only practiced after a game twice, and both of them were with Everett and Todd and Troy and that group. One of them was coming back from Illinois when we got 86-43. Yeah. And we get back and we're taped we're back. First of all, we stop at the Beef House.
You got to tell the story.
We're getting ready, Coach Keady jumps up and says, "Stay on the bus." We're looking forward to a steak, and managers bring on cold cheeseburgers and chips and Diet Pepsi, and that's it. We're not getting steak that night, guys. We just got our tail whooped. And somebody, I think it was Jeff Arnold, but I don't know for sure. One of you freshmen asked for ketchup, and he got up and just exploded. He goes,
"Troy, wasn't that you? That was you, Troy."
Was it Troy? Somebody asked for ketchup. And we're all going, uh-oh, he just blew up. So now we've got, from the Beef House to Mackey's another hour and 15, 20 minutes. It's dead silent. He goes, "Tape on the floor, 30 minutes. Now, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. So we're on the floor at 4:30 in the morning. We go till 6:30. And if you remember back then, he always had weightlifting at noon on Sundays. He said, and be back at noon on Sunday for weightlifting. So that was one. The other one, we get beat at home by Michigan. And we no more get in the locker room. We don't take our uniforms off. He says, back out on the floor. We're practicing. People haven't left the arena yet, and we're back out on the floor practice again, after the Michigan loss. And I know why. He knew he had 3 really talented guys, and he knew he had an opportunity to, kind of take Purdue to the next level. Because Greg and my group, I think our whole thing was we didn't put up anything about national titles. Heck, we knew we were just lucky to be there playing for Purdue. And our big thing was try to win a Big Ten title, get some credibility to the program. Coach Keady's, built from that point, and obviously he did. But Troy and Everett and Todd, man, you guys put me through a lot, and you didn't even know it. He was just he was teaching you guys a lot of lessons that I had to be a part of. So,
yeah. Floor's open. Brian Cardinal, anybody out there? You got some?
I'll share 2 stories real quick. I still remember, Steve mentioned redshirting. I still remember my first year I redshirted, and I went into Coach Keady's office several times, and it was a deer in headlights. I was a mental disaster. We had 6 seniors. I was just trying to survive, and I went to his office a couple of different times and said, "Hey, Coach, I think I need a red shirt." And he would brush it off, and he'd tell me to get the hell out of his office and just relax and take a breath. And finally it got to a point, I think we were at Central Michigan or something like that. And I had this epiphany that I needed to go and have this heart to heart with Coach Keady. And I went down, knocked on his door in his hotel room, and he opens up the door. And I've shared this story before. And he opens up the door, and he's there in a t-shirt, and he's got his whitey tighties on, and he's crunching on a cigar. And he's like, "Come on in." And I'm like, "No, hell no, I don't want to come in." And so I go in, and the door shuts, and I kind of cringe, and I'm like, "Hey, Coach." And he's like, "What do you want, babe?" And I said, "Hey, I really think I need a red shirt." And he's like, "Okay." And I ran out of that room as fast as I could. So I see Coach Keady now, and I struggle. I try to get that vision of him in whitey tighties out of my mind, but it's tough. So that's my one memory, and my other one, and I'll leave you with this is Coach Keady. My senior year, he in practice he'd call fouls periodically, and I don't think I ever fouled in my entire career. I don't think I ever fouled. And so he would call fouls periodically, and sure enough, I'd say, "Coach, I don't think I fouled." And and of course, he'd say, "Okay, everybody on the line." And so all of a sudden now the whole team is running because I got to talk, because I'm talking. I'm talking. He thinks I'm talking back, and I'm like, "Oh my God, everybody's mad at me." And so we run down and back, a couple different times, and then we get back into practice, and of course I foul again, and he's like, "Foul," calls out, Black has the ball again, and I'm like, "Coach, I don't think I fouled." He's like, "Okay, put 5 minutes on the clock," and I'm like, "Oh man, we got the whole team running." Oh, and he goes, "Okay, Cardinal, get on the line." Next thing I know is that clock is going, and I'm the only one running. Everybody else is on the sideline drinking water, catching their breath, and I'm just running back and forth for the next 5 minutes. And that's the last time I ever questioned any of Coach Keady's calls. And but he's a tough-nosed guy, and I'm grateful that he was in my life. I'm grateful that he was in all of our lives, and it's a magical time for Purdue, for Coach Keady, and I think for all of us, because he's we get a chance. The whole country gets a chance to celebrate Coach Keady for everything that he's done for all of us and the game of basketball.
We are working on the coach to see if we can get him to unmute, and Coach, I think we may be trying, but I'm not sure. That's what I think we're hearing in the background. But Coach, you there? Coach Keady, you hearing me? I think he can't get it unmuted, but
you.
Yeah, there you are.
Oh, Coach.
Oh no, you guys can just do some imitation.
The only time we can yell at him and he can't come back.
Here's Coach.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that may be it. All right, other stories, guys. Anybody else?
I got a couple of our senior year. It's kind of what sort of like Cardinal story, but our senior year we were ranked number 2 in the country, and we just beat Iowa at Iowa. You know, I had B.J. Armstrong and Roy Marble and all those guys. We had a rule that if we gave up 10 offensive rebounds or more, we had to run. So Iowa's a tough offensive rebounding team. I mean, they always crash the board. So, but we beat them at Iowa. So me, Todd, and Everett, we're like, man, we need to go tell coach, we don't need to be running, man. We got a good team here. We got to save our legs for the tournament, you know. So the day of practice, so we go up to coach's office and we go like, coach, you know, he had the open door policy, like Greg said. And so we get up there, we say, coach, you know, we're doing a good job. We're winning games. We had, you know, 2 in the country. We think this run is not helping us. You know, that's not going to stop us, you know. And he was like, yeah, you guys really think that? We said, yeah, we think we can still, you know, do the things we need to do. And he said, all right. So, okay, you don't have to run then. We're not going to run. So we walk out, we go like, okay, cool. We're like, all right. So, you know, we had a chalk talk, right? We sat down in the chairs and on the board. And he was like, this is what we're doing in practice. He said, I had our captains come up and said that we're not going to run for these offensive rebounds against Iowa. So we're not going to run these guys. All right. So we're not running. But anytime anybody getting offensive rebounds in practice, we're running on those. We were like, coach, we'll just run. He said, oh, I figured you'll see it my way. Yeah. And my first like really opening eye experience, my freshman year, Steve might remember this. We were playing Indiana at our place. My first Indiana Purdue game. I was from Indiana, so it's a big deal. And Indiana gets on a run, and I'm in the game. I'm kind of just like, you know, as a freshman, you kind of like, okay, I'm just trying to get with the flow, just stay with the flow, don't make mistakes, you know. So I'm out there, and Indiana just on this run, and coach calls timeout. And we're sitting down, you know, you had the chairs out on the court, and Matt Gaddis was about to drink water. Coach smacked it out of his hand before he even drank. Like Steve said, he always remembered the last play. Matt turned it over. He traveled. And I had a cup in my hand. I went like this. I dropped that cup down real quick. I'm like, I ain't doing nothing. So that's how hard those coach was. But that's, you know, he taught us what it was to be hard, and we ended up winning that game. After that, we went on an 8-0 run, came out of timeout. We went on an 8-0 run and beat Indiana that game. So it got my attention.
Hell yeah. Anybody else along the line?
I have one. This is Joe. I got one. When I was on coach staff as an assistant, and we had just won a big game at Minnesota on the road. And so we were on the bus headed from the arena to the airport. And coach looked up, pointed at a sign, and he said, "Hey, Zoe, they want to buy your house." And I looked at the sign. It was one of those signs, "We buy ugly houses." that was a good one.
Yeah, in my limited experience, I can't imagine more off the wall comments like that, where he would come up with something like, again, going back to my happy-go-lucky dolphin comment, like, where does that come from? But it's in that mind somewhere. So, anybody else, guys?
I've got one that talks about Coach Keady's character.
Yeah,
it had some teammates that the coaches gave him 2, 3, 4 chances, and eventually they got kicked off the team. And I remember talking to one of the players, and he was like, even, you know, during the year then, coach wanted him to get in class and get his degree. He ended up going to another school, was totally out of the program, and he was still worried about him getting a degree at another college or getting his college transfers done so he could get the credits or whatever. And it's like, wow, that's a guy that got kicked off the team and coach is still looking out for him. That impressed me.
Speaks volumes.
One of the comments I remember, maybe you guys can help me out. What does this mean? 3-peckered goat?
3-peckered Billy goat.
Yeah.
See, Coach Weber know all those.
Oh yeah. Greg, they have a thing called Google. You can do, or Urban Dictionary. It's all there for you, my friend.
So I got my favorite one. That was, we come in at halftime. We had like, I don't know, 11 turnovers. So, you just can't do that. And he says, you guys are throwing the ball around like Harvey Rabbit's playing with you.
Yeah, Harvey the Rabbit.
I didn't know who Harvey the Rabbit was. I got done with the game. I called my dad. I said, Dad, who in the world is Harvey the Rabbit? I guess it's a character in a Jimmy Stewart movie. It was an invisible rabbit that the guy thought so, okay, that makes sense. We're throwing around to some invisible rabbit that can't catch the ball. But yeah, you guys are throwing the ball around like we're playing with Harvey the Rabbit. I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about.
His other thing that he used to always say, I didn't understand it. He used to always talk about when someone makes a mistake or do something they're not supposed to, he would always scream, you need to check your whole car.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a big thing. I remember my freshman and sophomore year, and I remember Herb Robinson after one of our practices, because Herb was messing up in practice. And Herb came in there, he said, damn it, I wish he would tell me what my whole card is so I can check it. We just all started busting out laughing, man. Like, yeah, that would be helpful.
He was a card player, though. That's where it came from.
Yeah.
Other ones? Anybody else?
Am I still on?
You still on?
Yeah.
You bet.
I just wanted to thank all you guys, for Coach. I know all the groups, from Steve and Greg, the first group that no one thought could win, and winning the championship, to Troy and Todd, Everett, that group, obviously Glenn and Zoe, just the different eras, Brian and Brad. Why don't you have Brad on here? That's a question I have. So.
Yeah, I did. I didn't track him down. He'd have brought he'd have brought a beard to it. That's for sure.
Right. And then even Brandon's group, just, you guys left a legacy, and I know Coach appreciates it. And, it was a thrill for me to be part of it. And I'm so happy for Coach to be, going in the Hall of Fame, well-deserved. And, it's special for all you, special for Purdue, and I know, and for him and his family. So the last thing Matt Painter always asked me all the time, he got mad at Matt, and he told him, he said, go home and play a joke on yourself. And Matt came up to me and said, how do I go play a joke on myself?
That's a great one.
When does he get inducted?
But just appreciate it. Thanks, Al, for getting us all on. And
it's great to see everybody.
Real friend. Any last words?
I haven't seen you forever, man. It's great to see you, man.
All right, I've got everybody's contact information, I think, pretty much on the line. So if you need anything, feel free to shoot me a text. But thank you all so much.
Is there actually a ceremony?
Yes. There is going to be, I think, in what is it? It's at the Mohegan Sun. Is August? Is it August 11th and 12th? And I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, August 11th and 12th. It's at the Mohegan Sun Friday night, and then in Springfield, Mass. On Saturday at the Naismith Hall of Fame, at the Hall of Fame building. They'll have the ceremony there on that Saturday.
Yeah. So I will try to get some information too. I'm sure that they've got, I don't know exactly how that all is going to work, or what ticket availability and all that kind of stuff is going to be, but I'm sure we'll be hearing from some folks. And of course, that the basketball reunion, I think, is also supposedly that August 4th, I believe, right, at Purdue. So that part of it will be as well. So, all right, last chance, anybody. Hey, thanks so much for your time. But anybody else got a last second story to tell? All right, guys.
Great to see you, Coach.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
And thanks, congratulations,
Glenn and Cuonzo and everybody else that put all this together to herding the cats to get this done. It's a lot of fun for me. We will post this tomorrow. It'll be on it. So Nate Barrett, thanks to you and to Chariot Auto Group as well. We appreciate that. And for Nate and I, it was just fun for us to sit back and listen to what the heck was going on here. So that part was great. So enjoy the rest of your evening, guys. And we will air this tomorrow, and I'll send you guys links you can share it any way you like. So thanks so much.
Have a great night.
All right. Have a great night, all. Thank you.